welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today on our show we have Peter Solley. Peter is a musician who has played and toured with some of the greatest greats in rock and roll history from the 60s and 70s. Some of the people are Eric Clapton, Procol Harum, Janis Joplin, Motorhead came a little bit later, Jimi Hendrix. The list goes on, just saying. He's going to share some of these stories with us today, along with some other creative endeavors that he's been involved in over the years, including Grammy-nominated rock and roll productions, and also his latest, which is with Vermont Gelato Company here in Brattleboro, which he founded. So, thank you, Peter, for being with us today.
Pleasure.
Yes, we're very glad to have you, and we really want to hear some stories. And you know the kind we want. So, but let's just do a little bit of...
Censored.
We'll see how far we get with that. So let's just talk a little bit about, you are from England, and
Right.
you were born and raised in London?
Yes, North London. A nice part of London. Born to a fairly middle-class family. My father was a member of Parliament for the Labour Party. So that was post-war. There was a time of big change. And then he was thrown out of the Labour Party for being too left. The Labour Party was left-wing, but he was, I would go so far as to say he was a communist.
Wow.
My mother was certainly a communist because she wrote for the Daily Worker, which was the communist paper in London. McCarthyism had taken root in America, so all these amazing talents were being thrown out of America. Not thrown, but they couldn't work, so they had to go to Europe. So my father, being kind of known in left-wing circles, we would have dinner parties with all these great actors and singers. We had Paul Robeson singing Old Man River. We had all the African independence fighters, Kenyatta, all, you know, Robert Mugabe back in those days was a young, you know, they were young freedom fighters.
That must have been quite an amazing environment to grow up in.
The music was there the whole time.
Yeah.
So it wasn't the thing of like getting into it. It was there. But and I fell in love with the trumpet. So I taught myself how to play trumpet and became pretty damn good. But I also played clarinet and piano. After one lesson, my teacher said, there's no point carrying on, he has no talent. So I taught myself how to play piano. So I had proper teaching on violin and clarinet. And I was writing music. Just, you know, I was into it. It was just, that was what I thought about all the time. I had a little band at school playing jazz. Me and my brother, Stephen, who was 2 years older than me, every time an American great artist would come over, we would go see him. So we would see Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, because often they were at the BBC, so you get free tickets. Albert Ayler, all the greats, Big Joe Turner. We saw everyone, Art Blakey. You know, I would wait outside the theatre with the record sleeve so he would sign it when they came out. You know, we were fans. And then I heard, I'm not quite sure how, but I heard they were forming a National Youth Jazz Orchestra, which is going to be a whole new thing. So I went to the auditions and got it. And I was lead trumpet player, first trumpet. But I had to play some piano because they couldn't always get good piano players. But I liked playing trumpet. And there were some people in that band at that time that went on to have stellar careers, that became famous and did great. So it was a wonderful, wonderful time and thrilling for me.
Yes, I bet. And you're a bit of a prodigy as well, right? You could pick things up and play them.
I could pick any. I could pick any instrument up, and within half an hour I could be playing it semi-decently.
Yeah, that's
you know,
amazing.
just you just have it or not. But the problem with that is you're a big fish in a little pond. So you think, you know, everyone says you're precocious, you're brilliant, and you're thinking, I am pretty good. But the first time you go to a class, it's the worst feeling in the world because everyone there is just as good as you. And all these illusions you've had of being so good, and it's all so cool, and then suddenly,
all of a sudden, there you
all
are.
of a sudden,
Yeah.
you're faced with mortality.
I know that you were pretty young then, but it probably wasn't a huge leap to rock and roll.
No, I started off playing in jazz bands, traditional kind of jazz, New Orleans type jazz. First big gig, well, I got a call to join a band called Chris Farlow and the Thunderbirds, which was a big band in England. He had several hits. He was kind of a soul singer. So that was my first big break, I suppose. And I stayed with him for a year, and also in the band was a guitar player called Albert Lee. Now this is for people that are into it, but Albert Lee was a phenomenal guitar player from London. He always wanted to play with Buck Owens, with American country. Well, he ended up being just about the most famous country guitar player. Lives in Los Angeles, played with Emmylou Harris, and he had this huge career. Phenomenal. And the other guy in the band, there's just three in the band. I used to play keys and bass on the pedals. The other guy in the band was a drummer called Carl Palmer, who started a band called Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So out of that first band, all three of us went on to great things.
Yeah,
it was an amazing that just all came together.
Yeah.
I got a call from a chap, said, meet me in a hotel in London. Would you like to go over to Spain and live in Spain and join a band called Los Bravos, who had just had this enormous hit called Black is Black. Black is black.
They did the
I want
Stone
my
song.
baby back.
Yeah, great song. Yeah.
And the keyboard player just
Yeah.
killed himself
Oh.
for whatever reason. I don't know. So I was coming in. I thought, well, that sounds kind of cool. So I did that for a year. Went over to Spain with Franco. This was fascist.
Still there, yeah.
And we used to play the bull rings at night. They'd have the bull fights in the day, and then they'd clean up all the blood, and then they'd have the Los Bravos would play at night. We'd play half an hour, that's it. We'd come in cars into the bull ring, jump out, kind of like the Beatles, play to all these screaming kids with these cops with giant rubber truncheons just beating the crap out of these girls. It could never happen anywhere else.
Wow.
I did that, and then I left that after about 10 months because I couldn't stand it. I'm abbreviating everything here. And I went over to England and joined a band called The Crazy World of Arthur Brown, who had also just had a ginormous hit called Fire, where he set his head on fire, and you can still go to YouTube and see it, see me.
Yeah.
And I did that for a year. That was pretty freaky and psychedelic.
And so we're deep in the 60s now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're deep in the 60s.
69 was a real big year for you. You were doing some touring during that year, right?
68 was when it kind of started, when I first came to America. I left Crazy World of Arthur Brown and got a call from a friend of mine. Said, I'm in a band, we're going to America in 8 days to support Cream on their farewell tour. But the keyboard player doesn't want to go, he doesn't want to leave England. So I went out there, and it was great. This guy was fantastic, Terry Reid, a singer, songwriter. He really was good. I mean, he was legendary good.
Yeah.
8 days later, we found ourselves at the Houston Astrodome.
Wow.
Boom.
Boom.
We played 150, 200 people, and suddenly we're playing in those places each day.
Yeah. What was that like for you?
That was wild. I mean, you know, just surreal. Surreal.
Yeah.
It's the only word you can really use because...
It was out of place and time and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wish I'd written it down or...
Hindsight.
Had some evidence,
Yeah,
you know.
I know.
And sometimes I watch Antiques Roadshow, and someone comes on with posters of like Hendrix or this or that, and I think, gee, and they're worth a fortune. And I thought, man, I could have just taken out every one of these things. I was there. Just roll them up, put them.
And plus your
Who
diaries
knew?
would probably be worth a fortune, all the inside stories of
knew?
all these guys. Yeah, who knew exactly?
I know.
Exactly. And had you met Clapton before? Was he part of your world in England?
Well, he
at
was
all?
the first rock band I ever saw was a band called the Yardbirds.
Yep.
He was in the Yardbirds, and they blew my mind. Literally, I had never seen a rock band. Never really knew much about rock and roll. Saw them, and they did all these things where they had these kind of bluesy stuff, but they would always go to this crescendo and get really intense. And that blew me away.
Yeah.
But I didn't meet him.
Then, yeah.
But that's when I saw it. Then we did the Cream farewell tour, and we didn't hang with them. They were like, they hated each other. It's a very weird dynamic.
Yes, yeah.
And so we never really, they all had their own dressing rooms, and we never really hung out with them and say hi and stuff.
Yeah. Was that the same year you toured with the Stones?
That next year we did
year.
it with the Stones,
Yeah.
and that was even
Which
better.
tour of theirs was that?
Well, I call it the 1969 tour. I don't know which tour.
That's all you need to
it
say,
is.
right?
But the thing about that tour was the lineup was just insane. It was Stones and us every night, B.B. King and his band every night, and then alternating different places, Ike and Tina Turner, or Janis Joplin. Who am I forgetting? Well, that's enough for now. I used to watch every night the opening acts. I didn't watch the Stones. I watched a little bit, then I'd walk away.
Yeah?
Because it was all...
Too much?
It was just kind of shtick,
Yeah.
you know, shtick. He had his shtick. It was the same every night.
Yeah.
You knew, you knew what was going to come. They never changed anything. It was good. I mean, it's really good.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you would look at B.B. King or Ike and Tina Turner, and man, I could watch those people all night. It was so, so good. And
Well, that's a
BB, actually, I was playing guitar then too, and I was in my dressing room. I used to try and copy all his licks
Yeah.
and stuff.
I think you weren't alone in that.
Yeah. And I'm sitting in our dressing room one day, and I'm just doing his ding, his little BB thing, and the door opens up, and BB sticks his head in. He said, "Lord, I thought that was me playing that." And that
Wow,
was
that's
like
the ultimate compliment.
That was the ultimate compliment. I was
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
that was so good.
Uh-huh.
But you mentioned earlier, before we were on the air, about my favorite performances of people.
Yes.
The best acts I ever saw, amongst them is Ike and Tina Turner. That band at that time, when he was beating her and had all this terrible abuse things happening, but you never know it from looking at it. It was the best band in the world. It was so good.
The whole
it
band
was just
itself, yeah.
Every part of it. The three dancers, whatever they called them.
The Ikettes.
The Ikettes.
Yeah.
And then Ike playing guitar, not a great guitar player, but a great rhythm player.
Yeah.
And she was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So certainly one of the greatest, in my top 5 of greatest people ever that I've seen. Yeah, and then Otis Redding. I saw Otis Redding in London. They took the Stack Show to England. So they had Sam and Dave, Otis Redding, Percy Sledge, all these great people. And when Otis came on, it was just the most thrilling, exciting thing I'd ever seen. And it's funnily enough, the guy that ran the Fillmore, East and West, Bill
Graham.
Bill Graham.
Yeah.
Someone asked him, who was your favorite performer ever? He said Otis Redding. And he's right. If you didn't see Otis Redding, then you can't understand what we're talking about. He had a magnetism, just something that you never saw in anyone else. It was just extraordinary.
One of the things that really interests all of us is you've got the performers, and as you say, the Stones do their shtick, whatever it is. And actually years ago, my husband and I got free tickets to see the Stones for their 40 Licks tour. And you know, there were the huge monitors and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And Chrissy Hines opened for them, and
Yeah,
she was fabulous.
terrific.
She was
Yeah,
wonderful.
terrific.
And then, you know, thinking, okay, it's going to be the Stones, it's going to be cool. And so they come out, and it's like, oh, there was something, energy shifted tremendously. And there was, you know, whether you knew exactly what they were going to do or not, you know, there was an energetic thing going on there that just blew you away.
Yeah.
So what you're saying, I'm going to go back and look at Otis Redding now and see
man.
some of his stuff, because
Yeah.
I never would have thought to pick him out as one of the very best. I never saw him live.
Yeah, great.
Who, anybody else off the top
Well,
of your
Stevie
head?
Wonder
Yeah,
live
yeah.
was, he was really something. That was back in the days of
Fulfilling his first finale,
his
that
first,
era. Yeah.
first album where he played everything. Man, that was beyond belief.
Yeah.
Stevie, Tina Turner. There's one other. Oh, Frank Sinatra.
Ah,
I saw Frank Sinatra,
yes.
and that was the same thing. Charisma.
Yes, yes.
I mean, just walking out there, and you know, I would spend a year trying to copy his little things. You know, everyone would laugh.
That's so cool.
But he was the greatest.
Right.
He
And I know
had a
that-
great life.
Yeah, yeah, and a long
Yeah,
career.
long, great
very long
life.
career. And I know that you talked a little bit before about how, you know, a lot of these guys, you know, they had their performance persona, but behind the scenes, you know, they're just kind of regular people.
Yeah.
They're very insecure or whatever.
Yeah.
And you've talked about some people that really
Yeah.
impressed you. What about meeting someone? Was there anyone in particular that really blew you away?
The one time I really did get awestruck and dumbstruck and became foolish was I was recording in Miami. I can't remember who I was producing, but in the next studio, Julio Iglesias had been doing vocals.
Yeah.
He was there every night. Lovely man. We used to chat. CBS had just given him a Rolls Royce. Literally given him a Rolls Royce because he was doing so well. So he was recording, and I didn't know whether. And the knock on our studio door, he opens it. May I just introduce someone? Sure, come in. And Diana Ross.
Uh-huh.
And she looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, she was just petite, had the hair.
Yeah.
She was just more gorgeous in the flesh than you could ever imagine. And she smelled wonderful. I mean, I'll never forget that part of it. And she gives me her little hand, you know. I didn't know what to say. I was awestruck. I
That's
mumbled a few things,
Yeah.
and then she left.
Yeah.
But I was calm speaking. Whoops, sorry, guy. And it was really,
Yeah.
that's very few people have that.
So you were also with Procol Harum for a while, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta say, playing with Procol was one of the great honors of my life. I was thrilled and honored to play. I played with them for a year, and every night, for me, was a moment of magic. They were so talented, but the music was orchestral.
Yes.
And it would slow down and speed up, and there was none of this, you've got to keep it. It was just whatever it felt.
Yeah.
And BJ, the drummer, who unfortunately died, he just led it along. And then, of course, the first encore would always be White a Shade of Pale. And as soon as
And you
you
played
came
the
back on
keyboard
and
for that, right?
ba, da, da, da. As soon as you hit that, the place went crazy, but you would feel this sense of magic.
Oh, yeah. I'll bet.
That's, and I've always treasured that. And I've stayed friends with Gary Brooker, who's a singer, and also Keith Reed, the lyricist, who wrote to me just a couple of weeks ago.
And
So
you played with them recently, didn't you? With Gary Brooker?
I go over whenever I go to England, and I have time, I'll go and do something. Last time we did a concert for a venue that was closing down that we'd all played at from the time we were 15. And it was unbelievable. We had Eric Clapton, we had Paul Jones from Man for Man, Leo Sayer. We had friends of mine, Henry Spinetti on drums that I'd played with years ago. Just this who's who of rock and roll. It was just an incredible night.
Yeah, it
And
sounds
it was
fabulous.
great for me to see all these people I knew. So we try and do that. Each time I go, he puts something on,
Yeah, that's
so I
great.
can go on and play.
Yeah,
And then we had a reunion for Procol, 30th anniversary of White Shade of Pale, and everyone that had played with Procol came over to
nice.
England.
I bet we could YouTube that, right?
Yeah, I'm sure you
That
could.
would be fun.
And that was great.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I played violin,
Ah,
amongst other things. But
fun.
yeah, it was fun. So yeah, we stayed friends.
That's great.
I went from the rock and roll thing into a studio situation. I was a studio player.
Yeah.
They would call up, you'd go play on someone's record. Then I got into jingles, started writing jingles for products, and I had a very good career very quickly. I had Coca-Cola, Kellogg's, British Airways, all the big accounts. I was doing that. And from that, I met quite a few people that were in the record business that I wouldn't have met otherwise. One chap had an Australian client and said, would you like to go over to Australia and produce an album for us? And I produced little singles, stuff, but nothing big. I said, yeah, who wouldn't? I go to Australia. So I went over there, had a great time. I brought the tapes back to mix in England, and the record went smash, double gold. And
What were the ones that were nominated for Grammys?
Motorhead.
Motorhead.
Yeah, of all people. Yeah, we did an album called 1916, which was rapturously received. I don't know if it's sold as rapturously as it was received,
Rapturously
but
received is good. I think it'd be interesting to know how you feel about the music culture, the difference between then and now.
it's a whole new ballpark now. The two things are not even comparable. In those days, you needed a rich white guy to put up the money
Yeah.
so you could go in the studio and record, and then you needed a rich white guy to pay off all the record radio stations to play your music, payola, which never disappeared, even though they had a congressional hearing about it.
Right.
It went on.
Yeah.
They paid in cocaine or in boys or in whatever it might be. These are the CBSs, the Sonys, the big companies. They would have an area devoted to buying off people. So that's how that was then. And, if you had talent, you had a reasonable shot, but you would still come out of it, say you did an album, you'd come out owing the record company probably $1 million before you see a dime, because they want to recoup everything they've spent.
Right.
Well, now, as is shown by the whole hip-hop thing, you have your Mac laptop,
Right.
or a PC laptop, but generally a Mac, a little bit of software, you have a little room like this with a microphone, you have all the drums and everything is in there, and you program it, and suddenly some kid from South LA can make a record that sounds just as good, maybe better, and certainly stuff that no record company would dare to put out because it would offend too many people. But the whole point of it was to offend. So I think it's a wonderful change that's happened, and they're still sorting out how they're going to make money.
Yeah. What do you listen to now?
Not much. I had 40 years of rock and roll, so my ears aren't.
Yeah, how are your ears?
They're not good. I have tinnitus, and it's just I'll be on hearing aids sooner than later. I just tried some out a few weeks ago.
Yep.
Everyone is. All
Right.
my
Oh,
friends.
sure. Yeah.
It's not just me. Anyone that was around at that time. So I don't really listen. If I listen to NPR.
Yeah. Classical. Yeah.
Classical, and then just talk. When I came up here, I started this gelato thing.
Yes.
It kind of obsessed me.
Yeah, let's hear about that obsession.
Yeah. Well, you do something, it becomes your obsession. I didn't intend it to become that. It was just a little fun hobby that got out of control. We had a cafe in Newfane. We opened a cafe. And we thought, it'd be really nice to put some gelato in here, it'd be a different thing. And I used to play around at home. I knew how to do it. So we did that, and then after we sold out from the cafe, and then I was walking around the cotton mill with the manager one day, and she said, this place is going to be available in 4 weeks. And it was a great little spot. And I thought, well, do I do it or not? I thought, well, let's do it.
It's like playing the Houston Astrodome, right?
Yeah.
Going from Newfane to Cotton Mill.
Just do it.
It has been really successful.
Yeah, and each year's got better. Last year was tough because I was driving with $1,200-1,300 worth of gelato on the freeway, and my car burst into flames.
Oh, jeez.
My truck. So that was a bit rough, and my insurance company wouldn't pay.
Aye. That's tricky. That's
so
tricky.
I lost out on like 15 grand right there.
Yeah, you did.
Scared the crap out of me, but anyway, we moved to a bigger place in December. So we're still at the cotton mill, but we have this ginormous space now.
Beautiful space.
It's gorgeous.
Really, it's a wonderful place.
It's gorgeous, and I mean, I don't know where it's going to go, but it's going to go somewhere.
Yeah, that's great. I have a couple last questions for you. I have a lot of last questions for you, but one is, do you consider playing again?
Right. So if ever I sold the business,
right, a retirement plan.
I would certainly go back to practicing, and I think I would need to practice for a year to really get my chops back. But I think I would like to do that and write. Yeah.
Write about those days?
No, write music.
Music,
Although I could write.
You sure could.
I'd like to write a book. I did write a book, but it was not a good book.
Yeah.
I need a writer. I'm not a writer, so I would need a ghostwriter.
Well, that's something to think about because that would be. I'm sure you've got some great stories that we're not even at the tip of the ice of this iceberg. Well, Peter, all of these stories, it certainly makes me feel that you've had a charmed life.
I'm on my 9th.
Yeah, your 9th life. Yeah, wonderful stories and great touchstones for all of us, who lived through it. And I think also for people who are still listening today, it's pretty much eternal kind of music for all of us.
Oh, great.
So thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yes,
it's been fun.
Stop by, everyone, and check out some gelato.
Yeah. At the co-op.
Yeah, and go on YouTube, and I'm sure you can track down all these people.
Oh, it's embarrassing, but I'm there.
Afro, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Peter.
Thanks.
And thanks to all of you for tuning in today for this fun show. We will see you next week.